We're about ready to bring somebody on the phone that we're happy to have as a guest this evening. I didn't even ask where he's at. I think he's in New Jersey, but I'm not positive. We would like to welcome legendary drummer for so many bands like currently Retrovirus and Sonic Youth and Pussy Galore and Chrome Cranks, Bob BERT. Thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, are you in New Jersey?
I'm in Hoboken, New Jersey, home of Frank Sinatra, right across the river from New York City.
Nice. My good friend Russell Figueredo drives a limo, but I'm not sure if he's in the city tonight or not, but you reminded me of him when you mentioned Frank and the city. So.
Yeah, Frank calls the shots for all those guys.
There you go. So is the only band that you're playing with right now Retrovirus, or do you always have a bunch of things going on, like different irons in the fire?
No, actually, the last 2 years, I've been playing with John Spencer and the Hitmakers. John Spencer being my old bandmate from Pussy Galore,
yeah,
who later went on to have the Blues Explosion. And so I've been playing. We did like over 100 shows last year, and even more the year before. We did a lot of shows in America and in Europe, opening for the Melvins. And in that band, I'm also playing this like metal drum kit that's like sort of like the one I played in Pussy Galore.
Okay. Wow, man. Yeah, John Spencer Blues Explosion was a great act.
Yeah.
And
this is just as good. And we are playing some Blues Explosion songs and some Pussy Galore songs. And I also have another band called the Wolf Manhattan Project, which is me and Kid Congo Powers from the Cramps and Gun Club fame, and Mick Collins of the Gories and the Dirt Bombs, etc.
Yeah, I heard about that, man. And what's the deal with Knoxville Girls?
Knoxville Girls, we broke up in like 2001, I guess. We broke up like right after 9/11 happened.
Okay.
But we do have an album of old stuff coming out on Bang Records out of Spain.
Okay. So I know going back as far as history, I know back in the day, I was trading fanzines back with Thurston Moore back in like the early 80s. And so, of course, when I found out, that he was in Sonic Youth a little later after that, I was like, oh, I know this guy. And is that where you kind of started your whole thing? Was Sonic Youth the beginning for everything you did, or was there like a pre-Sonic Youth history of Bob BERT?
Well, it was kind of... I grew up outside of New York City, and I've been going to concerts and shows my whole life. And I took drum lessons when I was like 12 years old. And but after I got out of high school, the thought of being a musician never crossed my mind. And I kind of went to an art school in New York, and I learned how to become a silkscreen printer. And I ended up being a fine art silkscreen printer. And I ended up actually making Andy Warhol's artwork a little bit in the 80s. But then I was living in New York and working in New York in the late 70s. And, I was lucky because I caught on to the music scene there very early. I saw the New York Dolls at Max's Kansas City in like 1973.
Wow.
And then in 1975, I discovered CBGB's and started going there like 4 times a week. I saw the beginnings of that whole scene and all those great bands that came out of there, and and going to Max's and stuff. And then in 1979, I saw an ad in the back of the Village Voice that said punk rock art. So I went to this gallery, and I got included in this group show that included like Joey Ramone and Screaming Mad George and all these crazy people, and it was at that gallery that I became a part of. Even after that show, that I met my future wife, and we started dating on January 1st, 1980, and then we decided to live together. So she lived in Jersey City, I lived in New York City, and we compromised and moved to Hoboken in 1981. And it was around about that time we were out at a club and seeing some bands play. And one of the bands didn't show up, and we had been drinking, and someone said, "Hey, is there a drummer in the house?" And my girlfriend was like, "Yeah, Bob's a drummer." And I got up on stage and started playing, and that became the first band I was in, which was called Drunk Driving. And then that was kind of crazy. We were kind of a troublemaking band. And then about 7 months later, that fell apart, and I joined Sonic Youth.
Wow. And you were on the first several Sonic Youth records, and then you kind of went back and forth throughout the years and did other stuff with those guys?
No, it was like I joined Sonic Youth in 1982. It was like about they recorded their first EP after only being together a short period of time. And Richard Edson, who later became a film star, was the drummer. And then I joined for a while, and when I went on their very first U.S. tours, it was Sonic Youth and Swans, 10 people in a van with a U-Haul.
Swans.
It was nuts. So we went down south and, played to like small crowds that hated us. And then, and then out to the Midwest. And then after that, they fired me for a spell, and they hired Jim Sclavunos, future drummer of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and also the Cramps and everybody else in the world. And but he only lasted a couple of months, but he ended up playing on most of Confusion is Sex, the first Sonic Youth album. I played on 2 songs on that. And then I came back, and I had gotten better. I was practicing the whole time I was out. And and then we recorded the Kill Your Idols EP, and we went to Europe a bunch of times, and then we recorded Bad Moon Rising. And the last tour that I did with Sonic Youth was in 1985, and it was opening for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds on their very first tour.
Wow. Through
England. And then I left, and in 1986 I started my own experimental side project called Bewitched, and then soon after that I joined Pussy Galore.
That's right, and you've had a heck of a life, man. You've had so many different interactions with so many bands. You've got a book that's out that's titled "I'm Just the Drummer." How has that been doing? How's the book sales, and how has the reaction been to the book?
The book sales have been great. The book turned out really well. I'm really happy with the job that Ozak did, like laying it out and getting it out there. And there was a limited edition first printing, I think, of 200 or 400, and that sold out. And then then they did a second printing where they added more pages, some pages of my artwork and some new stuff, and it's been selling really well. And it was especially selling really well when I was taking it out on tour with John Spencer.
I bet.
And so.
Yeah, I actually have the information, and I've been procrastinating like normal, but that's on my list of books to order within the next, probably week or so. So I can't wait to start digging into that book. I'm still finishing John Doe's book, but I can't wait to read yours next, actually.
Yeah, and then you got to read Mark Lanigan's book.
Oh, he's got a book out as well, huh?
Yeah, it's the most horrid tales of drug abuse and addiction ever, but it was a really great read.
It sounds like an uplifting read.
Yeah.
Also, you in the late 1990s started doing a fanzine with your wife Linda Wolf called BB Gun. How long did that last?
That started in '94, and we did 7 issues, and the last issue was in 2004. And it was really a labor of love, and did better issue, of course. And then, but it was it was a ton of work, and there's a lot of the highlights from the BB Gun magazines in my book.
Okay. Interesting. Also was noting, talking with Tracy earlier, and we were talking about how you did the liner notes for the 1998 Suicide second album reissue, which was cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, Paul Smith, who had Blast First Records, and he put out some Sonic Youth records and a bunch of other stuff, and he contacted me and asked me if I would do it, and I was like, yeah, thrilled, and I actually even got paid to do it, which was, I would have easily done it for free, but
Right.
that was great, and I'm glad I got to meet those guys.
Right. Have you only your life been a drummer, or do you play other instruments?
I'm only a drummer, and I did some, singing in my own band, but I can't play any other instruments.
How did you? How old were you exactly when you literally started playing drums?
I was around 12 because I'm, older, and so seeing like, you interview any musician that's like over 60, and they're going to say like, oh, when I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, my life changed, and that's kind of what happened to me. I was only 8 or 9, I guess, when that happened, but all of a sudden this British invasion was happening, and I just thought drums looked so cool, and they all came in different colors. And
it's like
my neighbor had a set, so I talked my parents into letting me take drum lessons.
Well, Tracy's my witness. My next question the next thing I had written down was, did the Beatles change your world? you beat me to it.
They started to change my world, and then the Stones came along and changed it for the better.
Yeah, the Stones were like the dirtier version. Yeah, the more bad boys even,
I often wonder every once in a while, like when you just ponder weird random questions, I often ponder what the music industry would be like had the Beatles never existed.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's just kind of like, and you look at them now, and you look at those clips from back then. They're just like this, clean cut little boy band with bangs.
Right.
But when they first appeared, they're like, oh my God, look at that! They have like high heels on and stuff. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, and they were mop heads. That was long hair at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember, because back then there was only AM radio. And so I had, I was a little kid, I had my transistor radio and just listened to it constantly, waiting for something like, Psychotic Reaction or the Young Rascals' Good Lovin' to come on.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, it was, I remember one of the AM radio stations, they had a giant contest, like, Elvis Presley or the Beatles, and the Beatles, swamped them.
Yeah, it's strange, like you look today and in a relatively short amount of time, a few decades, we've come so far with technology and music, and it almost seems like today people take it a lot more actually for granted. I mean,
oh yeah.
Back then it was like,
now any Tom, Dick, or Harry could make an album in their bedroom,
yeah, exactly.
Put it up on whatever, some streaming site. It's a whole other world, and especially now with this whole pandemic, it's just like, will there ever be live shows again? Who knows?
Gosh, yeah, don't even say that. There will be someday. There will be. I keep trying to remain positive about that, because that's something we just we need so badly in the world. So I can't. I refuse to give that up. Give up on that. So
yeah, exactly. And it's sad because so many, especially in America, so many of the cool venues that were left are going to have a hard time surviving.
Yes, I know that's been a big deal. With the small, I forget exactly what it's titled, but the Small Club Owners Association or something like that. And hopefully they'll do what the rock and roll and the punk community has always done, and people will come together and somehow be able to help these clubs out, and so that musicians can continue.
Yeah, and some of the clubs, like the Bowery Electric in New York City, they're actually like, they're streaming shows. So, they'll charge a certain amount for you to watch it. Hopefully they're bringing in some money, because doing it that way, it's like, people from all over the world could watch it. I mean, just the other night, I didn't watch it, but Nick Cave put on a concert.
I know, I heard about that.
Yeah, you had to pay $20 to watch it. And everyone was like raving about it, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, that's a great idea, man, that you've got to do something to keep things going and to keep the money in the pocket, man.
Totally.
I have a listener in Los Angeles, Bill, who wanted me to ask you a question. First of all, were you playing with Sonic Youth when they played the legendary Desolation Center concert in the Mojave Desert in the early 80s?
Yeah, yes, I was. That was 1985. And there's an amazing documentary about the Desolation Center that's out now streaming on some channels. And I highly recommend it. There's such great footage of not only Sonic Youth, but Sternste Neubau and then Red Cross and the Minutemen. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, apparently I heard everyone there was on LSD and the whole thing was really crazy. The Meat Puppets played and the Survival Research Labs did a demonstration of their destruction machines. And yeah, I really want to see that documentary.
Yeah, I mean, the night that we played, it was Sonic Youth, Red Cross, the Meat Puppets, and this band Psycom that this guy, who I didn't find out till many years later, the singer was Perry Farrell. And so, we pulled in and we heard that like everyone was like tripping on acid. I was just like, what the people are still taking acid in 1985? Like I couldn't believe it. I haven't taken it since the 60s.
That's funny. So that was probably a pretty insane show, I take it.
It was probably one of the most memorable shows of my life. I mean, we were in the middle of the desert, and there was a full moon, and
we've got to get that.
And I was really excited because Thurston Moore had made me a cassette of Red Cross, and I instantly fell in love with them. And this was going to be my first time seeing them, and they were amazing. And I've been such a big fan ever since. And
nice.
Stephen McDonald was only 16 years old at that show.
Yeah, I remember they were quite young when they started out, man. Wow, I can't wait to watch that film. Tracy, we've got to make a note to see that documentary for sure.
Absolutely.
Wrap it up. Yeah, well, it's been great speaking with you, man. We don't have much more time as far as our time limit on our show, but man,
okay.
I tell you what, I'm going to purchase your book, and then maybe we could speak again, part 2 down the road or something after I read the book, perhaps.
Well, we got everything in there, I think, in a short amount of time, and yeah, I mean, it's between Lydia Lunch and John Spencer. I've been, up until this pandemic, I've been touring the world for like the last 8 or 9 years, and going to places where I never got to go earlier on in my career. So it's just, I can't complain.
That's fabulous, and so so glad that you're still doing it, and that it still sounds like it's as fresh as it was, 30 years ago, and it sounds like you're still having a good time doing it, and how fortunate to be able to still do what you love.
Yeah, and also, people don't realize, they think I have this big history, but when I was at Sonic Youth and Pussy Galore, we didn't make any money, and we were sleeping on floors all over Europe and stuff like that.
Wow.
Now, to have my own hotel room is like the greatest thing in the world.
Well, we hope to catch you with Lydia Lunch sometime. I'm a big Lydia fan.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So give her lots.
You guys are like in the middle of Oregon?
We are down in the very, very bottom of Oregon, about 15 miles north of the California northern border.
We played a club in a town there.
Medford. Was it Medford?
I can't remember the name of it. It was a weird thing because we were on our way to Portland, and there was like a big storm or something, and we couldn't. We had a day or two to travel, so we booked the show like halfway, and I can't remember the name of the town, but it was like right over the California border.
Was it Ashland? Ashland or Wairika?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Ashland.
Yeah, probably Ashland then. What year would that have been?
Like last year or the year before?
What a trip.
Now I'm angry.
It was a brutal night. There was no one there. The show wasn't promoted.
Oh.
The club promoter made us a delicious lasagna, And I just remember being mind blown because I took a little walk.
Let me ask you this. Was it called Club 66?
Probably. It was a real retro kind of place.
Yeah, because the owner was a chef that had named Uzi. And he had...
Yes.
Yep. And he was known for making everybody food, but nobody was ever at the shows hardly.
Yep. That's where we play.
We live like a block from there, so I literally would have been a block away at that point.
And I feel like clawing my eyes out right now.
You gotta be kidding me.
A block away from there is like the biggest pot dispensary I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
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 Yep, that's the place.
What a trip, man. Yeah, that it would have been about 4 years ago or something.
We could have walked there had we known. That's how close it is.
And we would have promoted.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Well, next time, darn it.
We need to get our number circulated, man, Sister Tracy.
For sure.
for last minute pit stop gigs, man, we will promote for a fee. No. But Bob, thanks so much, man. I'll be in touch about getting that book. And again, thanks also for getting some records out to me. I appreciate that, man.
So much.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, and stay groovy.
You too, man. Thanks, and keep going and give Lydia Lunch our love.
I will.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thanks, Bob.